There is a moment that comes quietly, usually sometime after 60, when the body begins to feel different. It is not illness exactly. It is not pain exactly. It is something more subtle, a slowing, a stiffness, a sense that recovery from small efforts takes longer than it used to. The mind, too, feels different. Names take an extra moment to surface. Decisions feel slightly heavier. The edges of clarity seem just a little less sharp. Most people accept this as normal. They are told it is simply age, that this is what happens, that nothing can be done. They watch friends and family follow the same path, a gradual loss of strength, a slow retreat from activities once enjoyed, an increasing dependence on medications that manage symptoms but do not address causes. And because it happens slowly, because it happens to everyone around them, they assume this is simply what aging means. But there is another possibility. It is not widely discussed. It does not appear in advertisements or quick-fix promises. It emerges instead from decades of observation, from the study of those who age differently, from the quiet accumulation of research that points to a different understanding of what aging actually is. The difference between those who decline and those who remain vital is not primarily genetics. It is not luck. It is something far more accessible, far more ordinary. It is the architecture of the day, the small patterns repeated each morning that either support the body's natural maintenance systems or quietly undermine them. Most people never connect their daily habits to their long-term trajectory. They do not realize that what feels like aging may actually be something else entirely. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The architecture of longevity. How daily patterns shape the years ahead. There is a question that eventually arrives in every life. Usually sometime after the 60th year. It arrives quietly, often in the early morning hours when the mind is not yet fully occupied with the demands of the day. The question is simply this: why do some people remain vigorous well into their later decades while others decline at a pace that seems faster than it should be? This is not a question about genetics, though genetics play a role. It is not a question about medical care, though medical care matters. It is a question about the cumulative effect of small decisions repeated thousands of times over many years. It is a question about patterns. The study of longevity has shifted in recent decades. Researchers once focused primarily on disease, on the mechanisms of heart failure, on the progression of cognitive decline, on the factors that predict mortality. This approach produced valuable knowledge, but it also created a subtle distortion. By focusing on what goes wrong, it became easy to overlook what goes right. By studying the sick, it became possible to forget that many people remain well. In recent years, attention has turned to those who age well. Studies have followed thousands of individuals over decades, tracking not just who becomes ill, but who remains healthy. Researchers have traveled to regions where longevity is common, places like Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Ikaria in Greece, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and Loma Linda in California. They have interviewed centenarians, documented their habits, measured their biomarkers, and tried to understand what distinguishes them from those who age less successfully. What emerges from this body of research is not a single secret or a magic formula. It is a pattern, a constellation of habits, attitudes, and circumstances that together create the conditions for prolonged vitality. And while genetics certainly influence who lives longest, some people inherit genes that protect against certain diseases. The evidence suggests that lifestyle factors account for a remarkably large portion of how well we age. This is not a promise of immortality or a guarantee of perfect health. It is an observation about probability. The person who follows certain patterns is statistically more likely to maintain function, to avoid chronic disease, to remain independent, and to experience a shorter period of decline at the end of life. The person who follows different patterns faces different odds. What follows is an examination of those patterns, not as prescriptions to be followed rigidly, but as principles to be understood and adapted, not as a collection of isolated tips, but as an integrated approach to the later decades, an architecture of longevity that can be constructed one day at a time. The biology of aging. A gentle explanation. Before examining the patterns that support healthy aging, it is useful to understand what aging is at a biological level. This is not a technical discussion, but a conceptual one. The better we understand the underlying processes, the more sense the recommendations will make. Aging can be understood as the gradual loss of the body's ability to maintain itself. Every system, cardiovascular, immune, musculoskeletal, neurological, has built-in maintenance and repair mechanisms. These mechanisms work remarkably well for decades. Cells detect damage and repair it. Proteins that become misfolded are broken down and recycled. Immune cells identify and eliminate potential threats. Mitochondria, the energy-producing structures within cells, generate the fuel that powers all of this activity. But these maintenance systems are not perfect. Over time, damage accumulates faster than repair can keep up. This accumulation occurs in every tissue, in every organ, in every system. The heart's ability to pump efficiently declines slightly each year. The kidney's filtration rate decreases. The bones lose a small fraction of their density. The brain's processing speed slows. These changes are universal. They happen to everyone who lives long enough. What varies is the rate of accumulation. In some individuals, the systems that protect against damage remain robust well into old age. Their cardiovascular function declines slowly. Their cognitive processing remains sharp. Their bones retain sufficient density to prevent fracture. In others, the rate of decline is faster. The gap between these trajectories is not random. It is influenced by factors that can be modified. The factors that accelerate aging are well documented. Chronic inflammation, for example, damages tissues throughout the body. When inflammatory molecules remain elevated for years, they contribute to arterial stiffness, insulin resistance, and cognitive decline. Oxidative stress, caused by an imbalance between damaging free radicals and protective antioxidants, also accumulates over time. Metabolic dysfunction, particularly insulin resistance, creates a cascade of effects that accelerate aging in multiple systems. The factors that slow aging are equally well documented. Physical activity maintains muscle mass, bone density, and cardiovascular function. Certain dietary patterns reduce inflammation and support metabolic health. Social connection buffers against stress and maintains cognitive engagement. Purpose and meaning provide motivation to maintain healthy habits. Exposure to nature and natural light regulates circadian rhythms and supports mood. None of this is mysterious. It is biology responding to conditions. The body adapts to what it experiences. If it experiences regular movement, it maintains the capacity for movement. If it experiences prolonged sitting, it loses that capacity. If it experiences nutritious food, it operates efficiently. If it experiences processed food, it struggles. If it experiences connection and purpose, it produces neurochemicals that support well-being. If it experiences isolation and meaninglessness, it does not. This adaptability persists throughout life. The body at 80 retains the ability to respond to changed conditions. Muscles that are exercised will grow stronger, even if they have been sedentary for years. Bones that are stressed will add density, even in very old age. Cognitive function can improve with training and engagement. The trajectory is never fixed. It can always be influenced by what happens next. The first principle: movement as maintenance. Among all the factors that influence how we age, physical activity may be the most powerful. This is not an exaggeration or a rhetorical device. The research is remarkably consistent. People who move regularly live longer, experience less disability, and maintain cognitive function better than those who do not. The reasons for this are multiple. Movement maintains muscle mass, and muscle mass is essential for independence. Strong muscles allow a person to rise from a chair, to climb stairs, to carry groceries, to recover balance after a stumble. Without sufficient muscle, these basic activities become difficult or impossible. The loss of muscle with age is not inevitable. It is the result of disuse. Muscles that are challenged regularly retain their strength and size well into the later decades. Movement maintains bone density. Bones respond to stress by becoming stronger. When muscles pull on bones during activity, the bones receive signals to add mineral density. Without this stress, bones gradually lose density and become more susceptible to fracture. Hip fractures in particular are life-altering events for older adults, often marking the beginning of a decline in function from which full recovery is unlikely. Regular weight-bearing activity throughout life reduces the risk of such fractures. Movement maintains cardiovascular function. The heart is a muscle, and like all muscles, it responds to demand. Regular aerobic activity keeps the heart efficient, maintains the elasticity of blood vessels, and supports healthy blood pressure. These effects accumulate over time, reducing the burden on the cardiovascular system and decreasing the risk of heart attack and stroke. Movement maintains metabolic health. Physical activity increases the muscle's sensitivity to insulin, which helps regulate blood sugar. This effect is immediate and temporary, which is why regular activity is necessary. Each bout of exercise improves insulin sensitivity for hours or days afterward. When activity is consistent, this effect accumulates and significantly reduces the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Movement maintains joint function. Joints are designed to move. They produce lubricating fluid in response to motion. When joints are not moved through their full range regularly, the lubricating mechanisms become less effective, and the surrounding tissues stiffen. This creates a cycle. Stiffness discourages movement, and lack of movement increases stiffness. Breaking this cycle requires regular, gentle motion that maintains the joint's capacity to move. Movement maintains neurological function. Physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients while removing waste products. It stimulates the production of growth factors that support the survival of existing neurons and the formation of new connections between them. It reduces inflammation, which is increasingly recognized as a contributor to cognitive decline. Studies have consistently shown that active individuals have a lower risk of developing dementia than their sedentary counterparts. Movement maintains balance. The systems that keep us upright, the vestibular system in the inner ear, the proprioceptive system that senses body position, the visual system, and the musculoskeletal system, all require practice to function optimally. Balance training, even in simple forms like standing on one foot while brushing teeth, maintains these systems and reduces fall risk. Falls are a major cause of injury and disability in later life. Preventing them preserves independence. The type of movement matters less than the consistency. Walking, gardening, swimming, dancing, tai chi, resistance training, yoga, all provide benefits. The ideal approach combines activities that maintain cardiovascular fitness, muscular strength, flexibility, and balance. But for someone who has been sedentary, any increase in activity is beneficial. The body responds to whatever movement it receives. The key insight from longevity research is that movement must be embedded in daily life, not confined to scheduled exercise sessions. The people in longevity hotspots do not typically go to gyms. They walk to visit neighbors. They garden. They tend animals. They climb stairs. They perform manual tasks. Their activity is distributed throughout the day, not concentrated into a single hour. This pattern appears to be more sustainable and possibly more beneficial than the all-or-nothing approach common in modern societies. For those in their 60s and beyond, the goal is not athletic performance. It is the preservation of capacity, the ability to rise from a low chair without using arms, the ability to walk a quarter mile without stopping, the ability to carry a bag of groceries, the ability to recover balance after a misstep. These are the capacities that determine independence. They are maintained through consistent, varied movement. The second principle, the architecture of the day. How a day begins appears to have disproportionate influence on how it unfolds. This observation emerges from research on circadian rhythms, from studies of successful agers, and from the accumulated wisdom of multiple cultures. The first hour after waking sets a trajectory that affects everything that follows. The body during sleep undergoes maintenance. Tissues repair. Memories consolidate. Hormones balance. But sleep also depletes. Through respiration and perspiration, water is lost. By morning, even someone who slept well is operating at a fluid deficit. This deficit affects every system. Blood becomes slightly thicker, requiring more work from the heart. Digestion slows. Cognitive processing becomes less efficient. The thirst mechanism, which becomes less reliable with age, may not signal the need for fluid even when it exists. The typical response to morning is to reach for stimulants. Coffee or tea provides caffeine, which temporarily masks fatigue but does not address the underlying deficit. Caffeine is a diuretic, meaning it signals the kidneys to expel water. Consuming it before rehydrating compounds the problem. The energy from caffeine is borrowed against a physiological deficit that will demand repayment later. The alternative is simple and requires no special equipment. Upon waking, before consuming anything else, drink a full glass of water. Room temperature water is absorbed more quickly than cold water, which the stomach must warm. The quantity matters. A few sips will not reverse the overnight deficit. A full glass, approximately 8 to 12 ounces, begins to restore balance. This single act sends signals throughout the body. The digestive tract activates. The circulatory system becomes more fluid. The kidneys receive the message that filtration can resume. The brain, composed mostly of water, begins to function with greater clarity. Within minutes, the sensation of heaviness often lifts. The grogginess that seemed like a permanent feature of mornings recedes. After hydration, movement follows. This is not exercise in the conventional sense. It is gentle motion that reminds the body of its capacity. Rolling the shoulders, turning the head, reaching upward, twisting gently, flexing the feet. These movements take 5 to 10 minutes. They increase blood flow to muscles and joints. They produce synovial fluid in the joints. They signal to the musculoskeletal system that the day has begun and that it will be expected to function. The timing matters. Moving before the body has a chance to settle into stiffness is more effective than moving after stiffness has set in. The discomfort of moving stiff joints is temporary and diminishes as the joints warm. The alternative, waiting for warmth to come passively, takes longer and often never fully arrives. After movement, the mind requires attention. The transition from sleep to full wakefulness is not instantaneous. The brain benefits from a gradual awakening, a period of quiet before the demands of the world intrude. Sitting quietly for a few minutes, Focusing on the breath, allowing thoughts to come and go without engagement. This practice calms the nervous system and organizes the mind. Research on this practice has demonstrated its effects on brain function. During quiet breathing, brain waves shift toward patterns associated with relaxed alertness. The default mode network, responsible for mind-wandering and self-referential thought, becomes less active. The executive network, responsible for focus and decision-making, becomes more accessible. The result is a mind that is calmer, clearer, and more capable of responding to challenges rather than reacting to them. For the older adult, this practice has specific benefits. The stress response becomes more regulated. Cortisol follows a natural daily rhythm that is easily disrupted by morning chaos. Starting the day with a stress spike from alarming news, demanding messages, or rushing disrupts this rhythm and leads to elevated cortisol throughout the day. Elevated cortisol over time contributes to cognitive decline, immune suppression, and metabolic dysregulation. A few minutes of quiet breathing in the morning helps maintain the natural rhythm. After internal quiet, the body needs external light, the circadian rhythm. The internal clock that governs sleep and wakefulness is set primarily by light exposure. Specifically, by exposure to bright light in the morning hours. Light enters the eyes and stimulates cells in the retina that are not involved in vision. These cells detect the presence of bright light and signal the brain's master clock that the day has begun. In response, the brain suppresses melatonin, increases alertness, and begins counting down to the next sleep period. Without this morning light signal, the circadian rhythm drifts. Melatonin production continues later into the morning, contributing to grogginess. Sleep onset becomes erratic. Sleep quality deteriorates. And because sleep is when the brain clears metabolic waste and consolidates memories, poor sleep accelerates cognitive decline. The solution is exposure to outdoor light within the first hour of waking. This requires approximately 30 seconds to 2 minutes of looking toward the light, not directly at the sun, but toward the general direction of the sky. Cloudy days still provide sufficient light. The light outside on an overcast day is still hundreds of times brighter than indoor lighting. During this exposure, the skin also receives benefit. Vitamin D synthesis requires ultraviolet light, and morning sun provides this without the intensity of midday exposure. Vitamin D deficiency is common among older adults, particularly those who spend most of their time indoors. Low levels are associated with increased risk of falls, fractures, cardiovascular disease, and depression. While 30 seconds of morning sunlight does not correct a significant deficiency, it contributes to maintenance and reminds the body that vitamin D production should continue. The final element of the morning sequence involves sound, not music or news, but specific frequencies that influence brain activity. The brain produces electrical activity at different frequencies depending on its state. Beta frequencies are associated with active thinking. Alpha frequencies with relaxed wakefulness. Theta frequencies with deep relaxation and meditation. Research has demonstrated that exposure to sound pulses at specific frequencies can influence the brain's tendency to produce those same frequencies. This is called entrainment. For the morning routine, frequencies in the theta range are particularly useful. Theta states are associated with reduced mental chatter, increased creativity, improved memory consolidation, and a sense of calm alertness. Spending a few minutes in a theta state before beginning the day's activities organizes the mind in a way that carries forward into subsequent tasks. The practice requires headphones and access to audio tracks that deliver these frequencies. While listening, attention can be directed toward intentions for the day. How do you want to feel? What do you want to accomplish? What mental patterns do you want to release? The combination of the auditory stimulus and focused intention creates a state in which the brain is more receptive to new patterns. This sequence, hydration, movement, quiet, light, sound, creates a morning that is fundamentally different from the typical morning. The typical morning is reactive. The alternative is intentional. It begins with the person's own needs rather than the world's demands. It creates a buffer between sleep and activity, a space in which the person becomes fully themselves before engaging with others. The third principle, patterns of eating. What and when we eat influences every system in the body. The relationship between diet and health is complex, but certain patterns emerge consistently from research on longevity. The first pattern concerns the timing of eating. The human body evolved in an environment where food was not constantly available. Periods of eating alternated with periods of fasting. This pattern shaped the body's metabolic processes. During fasting, the body shifts into maintenance mode. Cells clean out damaged components, a process called autophagy. Insulin levels drop, allowing fat stores to be accessed for energy. Inflammation decreases. In modern environments, food is available at all times. Many people eat from waking until sleeping, with few prolonged breaks. This constant eating means the body never enters the fasting state. Insulin remains elevated. Autophagy never fully activates. The metabolic systems designed to alternate between feeding and fasting operate in a perpetual fed state. Research suggests that restoring some period of fasting each day may support healthy aging. This does not mean extreme calorie restriction or multi-day fasts. It means compressing eating into a window of approximately 10 to 12 hours, leaving a 12 to 14-hour fasting period overnight. For someone who finishes dinner by 7 in the evening and eats breakfast at 7 the next morning, this pattern occurs naturally. The challenge is avoiding late-night eating, which shortens the fasting window. The second pattern concerns what is eaten. The diets of populations with high longevity share certain characteristics. They are rich in vegetables, particularly leafy greens and colorful vegetables that provide various phytonutrients. They include legumes, beans, lentils, peas, which provide protein and fiber while stabilizing blood sugar. They include nuts and seeds, which provide healthy fats and minerals. They include fish in many but not all of these populations. They include fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, which support the gut microbiome. These diets are relatively low in processed foods, particularly those high in refined flour, added sugar, and industrial oils. They are moderate in portion sizes. They treat meat as a condiment or occasional feature rather than the center of every meal. They include wine in some populations, consumed in moderation with meals. The mechanisms through which these dietary patterns support longevity are multiple. The fiber from plants feeds beneficial gut bacteria, which produce compounds that reduce inflammation throughout the body. The phytonutrients from colorful plants act as antioxidants, neutralizing some of the oxidative damage that accumulates with age. The healthy fats support cell membranes and reduce inflammation. The moderate protein intake supports muscle maintenance without overactivating growth pathways that may accelerate aging. The third pattern concerns the social context of eating. In longevity hotspots, meals are not rushed affairs consumed alone. They are shared with family or community. They take time. The preparation and enjoyment of food is part of the rhythm of the day. This social dimension of eating has effects beyond the nutritional. It slows the pace of consumption, allowing satiety signals to register before overeating occurs. It provides connection and conversation, which support mental and emotional health. It creates a structure to the day that might otherwise be missing. For those seeking to apply these principles, The approach is gradual. Small changes accumulate. Adding a serving of vegetables to one meal each day. Extending the overnight fast by delaying breakfast or advancing dinner by 30 minutes. Replacing one processed snack with a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts. Sharing one more meal with another person each week. These changes, sustained over time, shift the overall pattern in a direction associated with better outcomes. The fourth principle, the nervous system in balance. The nervous system mediates between the internal and external worlds. It interprets signals from the environment and coordinates the body's responses. How this system functions influences everything from heart rate to digestion to immune function to cognitive clarity. The autonomic nervous system has two main branches. The sympathetic branch prepares the body for action. It increases heart rate, redirects blood to muscles, releases stress hormones. This is the fight or flight response, essential for survival in threatening situations. The parasympathetic branch promotes rest and recovery. It slows heart rate, directs blood to digestive organs, supports repair processes. This is the rest and digest response, essential for maintenance and restoration. In modern life, the sympathetic branch is chronically overactivated. Demands, deadlines, notifications, news, traffic, noise, all of these trigger stress responses. The body prepares for threats that never arrive, and the system never fully returns to baseline. Over years, this chronic activation takes a toll. Inflammation increases, blood pressure rises, sleep quality declines, cognitive function suffers. The parasympathetic branch, by contrast, is underutilized. The conditions that activate it, safety, quiet, connection, rest, are increasingly rare. The balance between the two branches shifts, and the body operates in a state of chronic low-grade stress. Restoring balance requires intentional practices that activate the parasympathetic system. Deep, slow breathing is one such practice. When breathing slows, the heart rate slows in response. Blood pressure decreases. Muscles relax. The nervous system receives signals that the environment is safe and that repair can proceed. The vagus nerve, the primary conduit of the parasympathetic system, can be stimulated through various means. Humming or singing, which vibrates the vocal cords and stimulates the nerve through the adjacent tissues. Cold exposure, which activates the dive reflex. Gargling, meditation, gentle movement, social connection, laughter. These practices are not merely pleasant. They have physiological effects. Heart rate variability, a measure of the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic activity, increases with regular practice. Higher heart rate variability is associated with better health outcomes across multiple measures. It indicates a nervous system that can respond flexibly to changing demands, ramping up when needed and recovering afterward. For the older adult, this flexibility is particularly important. The ability to recover from stress, physical, emotional, cognitive, determines how well the body handles the challenges that inevitably arise. A nervous system that can activate appropriately and then return to baseline serves as a buffer against the cumulative effects of daily demands. The morning quiet practice described earlier supports this balance. So does an evening routine that winds down gradually rather than abruptly. So does time in nature, which has been shown to reduce sympathetic activity and increase parasympathetic tone. So does any activity that feels genuinely restorative, whether reading, listening to music, gardening, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea. The key is recognizing that nervous system balance is not automatic. It requires conditions that support it. In a world designed to keep the sympathetic system engaged, creating those conditions requires intention. But the practices that support balance are simple and accessible. They do not require special equipment or significant time. They require only recognition of their importance and commitment to their regular practice. The fifth principle: connection and purpose. The longest-lived populations share characteristics beyond diet and physical activity. They maintain strong social connections throughout life. They have a sense of purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. They remain engaged with their communities and families. Research has quantified these effects. Social isolation is associated with increased mortality risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness predicts cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, and immune dysfunction. Conversely, strong social networks predict better health outcomes across multiple measures. The mechanisms are multiple. Social connection buffers against stress. When challenges arise, having others to turn to reduces the physiological impact. The presence of trusted others lowers cortisol and blood pressure. Connection provides accountability for healthy behaviors. People who eat with others often eat better than those who eat alone. Connection provides cognitive stimulation through conversation and shared activities. Connection provides meaning, which in turn motivates the maintenance of health. Purpose operates through similar mechanisms. Having a reason to get up in the morning, whether caring for a grandchild, tending a garden, volunteering, creating art, or simply maintaining one's home, provides structure and motivation. Purpose directs attention outward rather than inward, reducing rumination and self-focus. Purpose encourages activity and engagement. Purpose has been linked to reduced risk of cognitive decline, cardiovascular events, and premature mortality. The Japanese concept of ikigai, often translated as reason for being, captures this idea. In Okinawa, where longevity is common, people can typically articulate their ikigai. It may be something grand or something simple. The key is that it exists, that it provides direction, that it makes the effort of living worthwhile. For those in later life, maintaining connection and purpose requires adaptation. Retirement can disrupt social networks built around work. Children move away. Friends fall ill. Mobility may decline. These changes are real and challenging, but they do not eliminate the need for connection and purpose. They simply require new forms. Community centers, religious organizations, volunteer opportunities, classes, walking groups, book clubs, these provide avenues for connection. Grandchildren, if present, provide natural opportunities for purpose. So do pets, gardens, creative projects, learning new skills. The form matters less than the presence of meaningful engagement. The evidence suggests that it is never too late to build these connections. People who become more socially engaged in later life experience benefits regardless of their previous patterns. The brain and body respond to improved conditions at any age. The sixth principle: environmental awareness. The environments we inhabit shape our behavior in ways we rarely recognize. A kitchen with processed foods visible on the counter encourages snacking. A living room with a comfortable chair facing a television encourages sitting. A bedroom with blackout curtains and no screens supports better sleep. These environmental factors operate beneath conscious awareness, nudging behavior in one direction or another. For healthy aging, designing environments that support desired behaviors is more effective than relying on willpower. Willpower is a limited resource that depletes with use. Environment operates continuously, without effort. The home environment can be assessed through this lens. Where do you sit most often? Is there a comfortable place to sit that is not in front of a screen? Is there a place to stand and look outside? Are walking paths clear of obstacles? Is the kitchen arranged so that healthy options are the most visible and accessible? Is the bedroom dark, quiet, and cool at night? Are there stairs that provide natural opportunities for movement? The outdoor environment also matters. Access to green space is associated with better health outcomes across multiple studies. Time in nature reduces stress, improves mood, and encourages physical activity. Even brief exposure to natural settings has measurable effects on physiological measures of stress. For those without easy access to parks or trails, a garden, a balcony with plants, or even a view of trees from a window provides some benefit. Light exposure throughout the day influences circadian rhythms and mood. Morning light, as discussed, sets the circadian clock. Throughout the day, exposure to bright light maintains alertness and supports the rhythm. In the evening, dimmer, warmer light signals the body that sleep approaches. Artificial lighting, particularly the blue light from screens, can disrupt this natural progression. Reducing screen time in the evening and using dimmer, warmer lights supports the transition to sleep. Noise exposure also affects health. Chronic noise, even at levels not consciously noticed, activates stress responses and disrupts sleep. Creating quiet spaces and times, turning off background television, closing windows to block traffic noise, using earplugs if necessary, supports nervous system balance. Temperature may also play a role. Exposure to mildly cold or warm conditions activates metabolic and circulatory responses that may have health benefits. The practice of cold exposure, increasingly studied, activates the sympathetic nervous system acutely and may improve metabolic function over time. Sauna use, common in Finland where longevity is high, has been associated with reduced cardiovascular mortality. The mechanisms involve improved circulation, reduced inflammation, and activation of stress response pathways that increase resilience. These environmental factors work together. A home that supports movement, provides access to light and nature, minimizes noise and disruption, and maintains comfortable temperatures creates conditions in which healthy behaviors become easier and automatic. The effort invested in shaping the environment pays dividends in reduced effort required to maintain healthy patterns. The integration of principles. These principles, movement, daily architecture, eating patterns, nervous system balance, connection and purpose, environmental awareness, do not operate in isolation. They interact and reinforce each other. Movement improves mood, which supports connection. Connection provides purpose, which motivates movement. Eating patterns affect nervous system function, which influences sleep, which affects the ability to maintain daily routines. The environment shapes all of these behaviors, and behaviors shape the environment in return. This integration is important because it means that small changes can have ripple effects. Improving sleep may increase energy for movement. More movement may improve mood, making connection easier. Stronger connections may provide accountability for eating patterns. Better eating may support nervous system balance. The system, once shifted in a positive direction, tends to maintain itself. Conversely, negative patterns also reinforce each other. Poor sleep reduces energy for movement. Less movement leads to isolation. Isolation worsens mood, which affects eating. Poor eating disrupts sleep. The system can spiral in either direction. The goal is not perfection in any single area. It is gradual improvement across multiple areas, creating conditions for the system to shift toward better function. Small changes, sustained over time, accumulate. The body adapts to whatever conditions it experiences consistently. By changing those conditions, even slightly, the trajectory changes. For someone in their 60s or beyond, the question is not whether these changes will reverse all effects of aging. They will not. The question is whether they will shift the odds in a favorable direction. The evidence suggests they will. People who adopt these patterns, even late in life, experience better outcomes than those who do not. They maintain function longer. They experience less disability. They report higher quality of life. They live, on average, longer. The question of starting. There is a tendency to view health practices as all-or-nothing propositions. Either you follow the perfect routine, or you might as well do nothing. This is a misconception that prevents many from starting. The benefits of these practices are graded. Some benefit is better than no benefit. More benefit is better than less. But the relationship is not linear, and small changes produce real effects. The person who adds a 5-minute walk to their day is better off than the person who remains sedentary. The person who drinks water before coffee is better off than the person who does not. The person who sits quietly for 2 minutes before checking the phone is better off than the person who dives immediately into the day's demands. These differences are small individually, but accumulate over time. Starting with one change is sufficient. The body and mind adapt to the new pattern. After weeks or months, that change becomes automatic. Then another change can be added. This gradual approach is more sustainable than dramatic overhaul. It works with human psychology rather than against it. The choice of which change to start with matters less than the commitment to start. Movement may be the most accessible for some. Morning hydration may be easiest for others. Quiet time may address the most pressing need for others. Any starting point is valid. The important thing is to begin. The cumulative nature of results. Results from these practices do not appear overnight. They accumulate gradually, often below the threshold of conscious awareness. The person who begins moving each morning may not notice immediate changes. But after weeks, they may realize they are rising from chairs more easily. After months, they may notice they have more energy throughout the day. After years, they may be among those who maintain independence while contemporaries decline. This gradual accumulation can make the practices feel ineffective in the short term. The temptation is to abandon them because they do not produce dramatic results quickly. This is a misunderstanding of how the body works. Dramatic results are not the goal. Slow, steady maintenance of function is the goal. The absence of decline is itself a result, even if it is not experienced as a positive change. The person who maintains mobility into their 80s does not feel the mobility they have preserved. They only feel the absence of immobility. The person who maintains cognitive clarity does not feel the clarity they have preserved. They only feel the absence of confusion. These absences are not noticeable as positive experiences. They are simply the continuation of normal function. But they are the result of years of consistent practice. This is why the practices must be maintained even when they seem unnecessary. They are investments in a future that cannot be felt in the present. The person who drinks water each morning is investing in hydration they will need years from now. The person who moves each morning is investing in muscle they will need years from now. The person who sits quietly is investing in nervous system balance they will need years from now. The returns on these investments are not immediate, but they are real. The perspective of time. Looking back from later life, the decisions made in earlier decades become visible in their effects. The person who maintained activity sees the result in their continued mobility. The person who ate well sees the result in their metabolic health. The person who stayed connected sees the result in their support network. The person who found purpose sees the result in their continued engagement with life. Looking forward, the decisions made today will become visible in the same way. The morning of this day, the choices made in the first hour, the patterns established and maintained, these will shape the years ahead. Not through magic or miracle, but through the ordinary biology of adaptation. The body becomes what it does. The mind becomes what it attends to. The life becomes what it practices. This is not a guarantee. Chance and genetics play roles that cannot be fully controlled. But within the space of what can be influenced, these practices provide direction. They tilt the odds. They create conditions in which the body can do its best work. They support the systems that maintain function. They build reserves that can be drawn upon when challenges arise. The alternative is not a guarantee either. Neglect does not guarantee decline, just as practice does not guarantee preservation. But the odds tilt in the opposite direction. The body that is not moved becomes stiff. The mind that is not quieted becomes agitated. The connections that are not maintained dissolve. The purpose that is not cultivated fades. These outcomes are not inevitable, but they are more likely. The choice embedded in each morning. Every morning presents a choice. It is rarely experienced as a choice. The patterns are automatic. The habits ingrained. But beneath the automaticity, a choice exists. To rise and reach for the phone, or to rise and drink water first. To remain seated, or to move. To dive into noise, or to sit in quiet. To stay inside, or to step into light. To begin reacting, or to begin with intention. These choices are small. They do not feel significant in the moment, but they are the raw material from which lives are built. Repeated thousands of times, they become the architecture of existence. They shape the body, the mind, the relationships, the days. They determine, in large part, how the later decades will be experienced. The research on longevity makes this clear. The differences between those who age well and those who do not are not primarily genetic. They are not primarily medical. They are primarily behavioral. They are the accumulated effect of thousands of small choices made consistently over decades. This is encouraging because it means the trajectory is never fixed. The choices made today matter. The morning of this day matters. The patterns established now will influence the years ahead. The body retains the capacity to respond to changed conditions. The mind retains the capacity to form new patterns. The life retains the capacity to shift direction. The question is not whether this is possible. The evidence says it is. The question is whether the choice will be made. Not once, but repeatedly. Not perfectly, but consistently. Not with dramatic intensity, but with quiet persistence. The architecture of longevity is built one day at a time, one choice at a time, one morning at a time. The materials are available to everyone. The only requirement is the decision to begin. The architecture of longevity is not built in a day. It is built one morning at a time, one choice at a time, one pattern at a time. The body becomes what it does repeatedly. The mind becomes what it attends to consistently. The life becomes what it practices daily. And the remarkable truth, supported by decades of observation and research, is that it is never too late to begin building differently. If this reflection has stirred something in you, a recognition, a curiosity, a quiet sense that perhaps more is possible than you had been led to believe, we would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments. What patterns have you noticed in your own life? What questions remain with you as you consider your own architecture of aging? The Longevity Library exists as a collection of such reflections, a growing archive of wisdom for those who wish to live their later years with strength, clarity, and independence. If you have not already, we invite you to explore the other volumes here and to subscribe so that you do not miss the ones still to come. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.